Corporal Kim Tae-sung stood at the entrance of the massive training facility, looking up at the structure that seemed to stretch into the darkness of space itself. Beside him, Private First Class Lee Ji-won adjusted her gear for the third time in as many minutes. Her nervous energy was obvious, but Tae-sung remained still, his dark eyes taking in everything around them. The orbital station called Terminus 7 was enormous. It housed soldiers from across the galaxy, species that humanity had only known about for 5 years. 5 years since first contact. 5 years since Earth learned it was not alone in the universe. And now, here they were, the first humans to join the Galactic Defense Coalition's elite training program. "Stop fidgeting," Tae-sung said quietly to Ji-won. His voice was calm, almost flat. "Sorry, Corporal," Ji-won replied, dropping her hands to her sides. "It's just—" Tae-sung was looking. The training yard was filled with beings that seemed impossible. A creature that looked like a walking insect, easily 3 meters tall, was lifting weights that would crush a human instantly. Its chitinous armor gleamed under the artificial lights, and its 4 arms moved with terrifying precision. Nearby, a being made entirely of crystalline structures floated above the ground, its body refracting light into rainbow patterns. "That's Commander Vrax," a voice said from behind them. They turned to see a human officer, his uniform marked with scars that spoke of real combat. The Bug, Chitari Empire's finest warrior, been in service for 30 years, killed more enemies than you've had hot meals. "Sergeant Park Hyun-woo," the officer introduced himself. "I've been here for 6 months. Prepare yourselves. They don't think much of us." "Why not?" Ji-won asked. Park laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Look around, Private. What do you see?" Ji-won looked. She saw strength that could tear steel. She saw beings with natural armor that could stop bullets. She saw creatures that could fly, phase through walls, or shoot energy from their bodies. She saw evolution's perfect warriors. "What do we have?" Park continued. "Soft skin, no claws, no armor, no special powers. We're slow compared to them, weak compared to them. We're from a death world, they say. But we look like prey animals to them." "Death world?" Tae-sung asked. It was the first question he'd spoken since arriving. "Earth," Park explained. "It's classified as a Class 12 death world. Highest danger rating. But they think it's a joke because we survived it and still look like this." He gestured at his ordinary human body. Before Tae-sung could respond, a booming voice echoed across the training yard. "New arrivals! Form up!" They joined a line of 40 soldiers. Tae-sung and Ji-won were the only humans. The others towered over them, dwarfed them, or simply existed in ways that made human biology seem like a cruel joke. General Krell stood before them. He was a 4-armed reptilian being, each arm as thick as a human torso. His scales were dark green, almost black, and his eyes were the color of molten gold. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "You are here because you represent the finest warriors your species can produce," Krell began. "You will train together, fight together. Some of you will die together. But first, you will prove you belong here." The physical assessments began immediately. Tae-sung watched as alien soldiers completed obstacle courses that seemed designed for beings with supernatural abilities. Commander Vrax scuttled up a vertical wall in seconds, his clawed feet finding purchase where there seemed to be none. The crystalline being, Lieutenant Boron, simply floated over obstacles that would have taken humans minutes to climb. When it was Tae-sung's turn, he ran the course. He climbed where others leaped. He crawled where others flew. His time was exactly 3 times slower than Vrax's. He heard the laughter from the alien soldiers as he crossed the finish line. "Look at the human struggle," one voice called out. "Are they sure it's from a death world?" Another mocked. Perhaps their world was only dangerous to them because they're so weak. Ji-won completed the course next. Her time was slightly better than Tae-sung's, but the mockery was the same. She finished with her jaw tight, anger burning in her eyes. Tae-sung simply stood at attention, his face showing nothing. The strength tests were worse. A being from the Gorlak species lifted weights, equivalent to a small vehicle. When Tae-sung's turn came, he lifted the bar with weights that were considered light by galactic standards. To him, it was at the edge of his capability. To the watching aliens, it was confirmation of human weakness. They gave us the Death Worlders, Vrak said loudly enough for everyone to hear. And they sent us children instead of warriors. More laughter. Jiwon's hands clenched into fists, but Tae-sung remained expressionless. His eyes, however, never stopped moving. He watched everything. He noted how Vrax's breathing increased after prolonged exertion. He saw how Lieutenant Boron's crystalline body dimmed slightly after using energy attacks. He observed how the Gorlak's warrior needed to rest between lifts, sitting down and breathing heavily. The day continued with demonstrations of species abilities. A telepathic being read thoughts from across the room. A warrior with regenerative powers cut his own arm and healed it within minutes. A soldier with adaptive camouflage became invisible against any background. When asked what special abilities humans possessed, Park simply said, "None, sir." The laughter that followed was loud and long. General Krell reviewed the results at the end of the day. His golden eyes swept over Tae-sung and Ji-won with something that looked like disappointment. "Humans," he said. "You will be assigned to support roles. Supply, medical assistance, communications. Leave the actual fighting to species built for war." "Sir," Tae-sung said. His voice was quiet but clear. "We're soldiers. We trained to fight. You trained on your world," Krell replied. "Against your own kind. This is the galaxy, human. You're outclassed in every physical metric. I'm being merciful by keeping you away from combat where you'll simply die uselessly." He paused. Dismissed. The alien soldiers filed out, many still chuckling about the weak humans. Vrax passed by Tae-sung and stopped. "No offense, human," the Chitauri commander said. His voice was surprisingly pleasant. "But you simply aren't built for this. Your species is, how do I say this kindly? Your evolutionary failures who got lucky enough to develop technology before your world killed you. Stick to support roles. Live longer that way." Tae-sung met the insectoid warrior's multifaceted eyes. "No offense taken, sir. We have..." Vrax nodded and moved on. Ji-won waited until they were alone before speaking. "Corporal, how can you stay so calm? They're treating us like we're nothing." Tae-sung was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice carried something that might have been amusement. "Ji-won, do you know how humans hunted on Earth? Before guns? Before civilization? No, Corporal. We chased animals. For days, sometimes weeks. We didn't run faster than them. We weren't stronger. We just kept going, and going, and going, until the prey collapsed from exhaustion, and we walked up and killed it with rocks." Ji-won frowned. "I don't understand." "You will," Tae-sung said. He looked out at the training facility, at the species that were stronger, faster, and more powerful than any human. They think we're weak because we can't do what they do. But they haven't seen what we can do. Not yet. "What can we do?" Tae-sung smiled for the first time since arriving. It was not a pleasant smile. "We can endure." 2 weeks had passed since Tae-sung and Ji-won arrived at Terminus 7. 2 weeks of being assigned to supply duties, while alien soldiers ran combat drills. 2 weeks of mockery that had become routine background noise. Tae-sung spent the time watching, learning, and waiting. Then General Krell announced the war games. 72 hours of continuous combat simulation, the four-armed general explained to the assembled troops. Mixed terrain. Variable conditions. Objectives scattered across a 50-kilometer zone. Each squad will compete to complete the maximum number of objectives. This will determine your final rankings and assignments. Sergeant Park Hyun-woo stood with the small group of human soldiers. There were 12 of them total now, spread across different squads. Squads will operate independently, Krell continued. No resupply. No reinforcements. You carry what you start with. Medical evacuation available for critical injuries only. This is as close to real combat as we can create. Prove yourselves. Commander Vrax's squad was already celebrating. The Chitauri warrior had handpicked his team from the station's best soldiers. They were the favorites to win. Vrax approached the human squad leaders with what might have been sympathy. Try to complete at least a few objectives, he said to Park. Even support personnel need field experience. Don't be ashamed if you need to withdraw early. Park smiled politely. We'll do our best, sir. The simulation began at dawn, station time. 40 squads deployed across the artificial environment. Tae-sung led a fire team of 4 humans, including G1. They moved into the simulated jungle quietly, weapons ready. The first 6 hours were chaos. Alien squads blitzed through objectives using their superior speed and strength. Vrax's team completed 3 objectives in the first 2 hours alone. The Chitauri commander was in constant communication with other squad leaders. His confidence obvious. The humans haven't even reached their first objective. Someone reported over the general channel. Laughter followed. Tae-sung ignored the chatter. His team moved at a steady pace through the jungle. Not running. Not rushing. Just moving. Always moving. By hour 12, the leaderboard showed Vrax's squad far ahead with 6 completed objectives. Other alien squads had 4 or 5 each. The human squads had 2 or 3. But something else was beginning to show in the data that nobody was paying attention to yet. Alien squads were taking rest periods. Hour 15. Tae-sung's team secured their 3rd objective. A simulated weapons cache. G1 was breathing hard, but steady. The other 2 humans in their fire team, both privates, showed fatigue but remained functional. Corporal, one of them said. Shouldn't we rest? No, Tae-sung replied. He checked his tablet showing the tactical map. Next objective is 7 kilometers east. We move now. On the command channel, Captain Yulara, a 6-legged predator species serving as combat instructor, was monitoring all squads. She noticed something odd. General, she said to Krell, the human squads haven't stopped moving, probably trying to make up for their slow pace. Krell replied without much interest. No, sir. They haven't stopped at all. No rest periods. No pauses except for objective completion. Krell pulled up the human squad data. She was right. 12 hours of constant movement. He frowned. They'll burn out soon. Foolish to push that hard this early. But hour 24 came, and the humans were still moving. Vrax's squad, having completed 9 objectives, took their 2nd scheduled rest period. The Chitauri warriors needed 4 hours of sleep every 20 hours of activity. Most species had similar requirements. Hour 28. Tae-sung's fire team secured Objective 7. They'd been moving for over a day without sleep. Ji-won's hands trembled slightly as she marked the objective complete, but her eyes remained sharp. Contact, one of the privates whispered. Through the trees, they could see an alien squad setting up camp. 6 soldiers from the Gorlak species, massive beings who dominated the early strength competitions. Tae-sung watched them for 5 minutes. The Gorlaks were clearly exhausted. Their movements were slow, sluggish. They were settling in for sleep. Around them, Tae-sung ordered. Quiet. His team moved like ghosts through the jungle. The Gorlaks never knew humans had passed within 50 meters of their position. Hour 36 arrived. Dr. Thane, the medical officer monitoring vital signs, noticed something alarming. Several alien squads were showing dangerous levels of exhaustion. 2 squads had already withdrawn after soldiers collapsed from fatigue. General, Thane reported, his gaseous form swirling with concern. We should consider ending the exercise early. Fatigue-related injuries are becoming common. How are the humans? Krell asked. Thane checked. Elevated heart rates, cortisol levels higher than baseline. but stable. All 12 human soldiers are still operational. They've been moving for 36 hours straight. Captain Ulara added. No sleep. Minimal food. Constant activity. Krell stared at the data, not quite believing it. Hour 48. The exercise shifted. The simulation added extreme temperature variations, mimicking environments where coalition forces actually operated. Ice storms, desert heat, toxic rain, alien squads struggled. Species evolved for specific environments found the changes devastating. A squad from the ice world of Glaciem couldn't function in the simulated desert heat. They withdrew. Temperature-sensitive species began dropping like flies. The humans simply adjusted their clothing and kept moving. Taesung's team had completed 12 objectives. They'd been awake for 2 full days. The private who'd asked about resting earlier stumbled and caught himself against a tree. "Corporal," he said, his voice rough. I'm really tired." "I know," Taesung said. His own exhaustion was a weight pressing down on every muscle. But his voice remained steady. 3 more objectives. Then, we can rest. 3 more? 3 more. They kept moving. Hour 55. Vrax's elite squad, the tournament favorites, completed their 15th objective. The Chitauri commander was proud. His soldiers were the best trained, most experienced, and most successful team in the exercise. But they were also exhausted. They'd been awake for nearly 30 hours with only brief rest periods. "Squad, we'll hold position here for 6 hours," Vrax ordered. "Sleep in shifts. We've got this one." His soldiers gratefully settled into defensive positions. Within minutes, half of them were asleep. 3 kilometers away, Taesung's team secured Objective 14. They'd been awake for 55 hours. G1 no longer bothered hiding her fatigue. She simply functioned through it, one step after another. Hour 60. Of the original 40 squads, only 8 remained operational. Vrax's squad was one. All 4 human squads were the others. The rest had withdrawn due to exhaustion, environmental stress, or simulated injuries from mistakes made while fatigued. Captain Ulara was staring at the tactical display in disbelief. "They're not stopping. The humans are not stopping." "That's not possible," Krell said, but his voice lacked certainty. "No species can operate at this level for this long." "Sir," Ulara replied. "The humans are operating at a lower intensity than the other species. They're not running. They're not using their maximum strength. They're maintaining a sustainable pace. For 60 hours straight? Apparently, yes." Hour 65. Park's squad, operating in the northern sector, encountered Vrax's resting soldiers. The Chitauri warriors were on their 3rd sleep rotation. Park's team simply marked their position and moved around them, securing 2 objectives that Vrax's squad had bypassed to rest. Vrax woke to an alert on his tablet. The humans had overtaken his squad in total objectives, 15 to 14. "Impossible," he muttered. Then he checked the timestamps. The humans had been completing objectives while his squad slept. In fact, the humans hadn't stopped at all. "How long have they been active?" he asked his second in command. "According to this, 65 hours, sir. Continuous." Vrax felt something he rarely experienced: unease. Hour 70. Taesung's team was moving toward their 18th objective when G1 finally spoke up. "Corporal, I need you to know something." "What?" "I can't feel my feet anymore. They're just numb." Taesung nodded. "Same. Keep moving anyway." "How are you doing this?" one of the privates asked. "How are you still going?" "1 step," Taesung replied. "Then another step. Then another. I'm not thinking about the next hour. Just the next step." The private stared at him. "That's it? That's the secret?" "That's it." Hour 72. The exercise ended. Sirens blared across the simulation zone, signaling all squads to return to base. The tactical display showed the final results. Vrax's elite squad. 15 objectives completed. Park's human squad. 19 objectives completed. Taesung's human squad. 18 objectives completed. The other two human squads, 17 and 16 objectives completed. The remaining alien squads, between 11 and 14 objectives completed. General Krell stared at the numbers. Then he stared at the video feeds showing the human soldiers walking back to base. They looked terrible. Exhausted. Stumbling. But they were walking. Under their own power. Still functional. Dr. Thane was examining the human soldiers as they arrived. "This is remarkable." "Own," he said. "They've operated for 72 hours, with no sleep, minimal nutrition, invariable hostile environments, and they're all still conscious and capable of basic functions." Vrax approached Taesung as the human corporal drank water with shaking hands. The Chitauri commander's usual confidence was absent. "How?" Vrax asked simply. Taesung finished drinking before answering. His eyes, bloodshot and heavy, met Vrax's compound gaze. "You're stronger than us," Taesung said. "Faster, tougher. Better in every way that matters in a sprint." He paused. But this wasn't a sprint. This was a marathon. And humans, we're very good at marathons. The implications hung in the air between them. General Krell's voice cut through the moment. "All squads, report for debriefing in 6 hours. Humans." He paused, clearly uncomfortable. "Rest first. 12 hours. You've earned it." As the aliens dispersed, still processing what had happened, Taesung finally allowed himself to sit down. G1 collapsed beside him. "We did it," she whispered. "We did," Taesung agreed. His eyes were already closing. "Wake me if the galaxy ends." Within seconds, he was asleep. Around them, the alien soldiers watched the humans with new eyes. Eyes that held the first seeds of respect. 3 months had passed since the war games. The mockery of human soldiers had quieted. But it hadn't disappeared. The galaxy was large, and respect earned in one training exercise didn't erase centuries of alien military doctrine. Humans were still considered support personnel, still seen as the weak link. Then came the deployment to Kiris 4. The colony world was under siege by the Kreltok swarm, a hostile species known for brutal ambush tactics. The Galactic Defense Coalition sent a mixed force of 200 soldiers. Among them were 30 humans, including Corporal Kim Taesung, Private Lee Ji-won, and a reconnaissance specialist named Han Soo-bin. Commander Vrax led the coalition force. Since the war games, the Chitauri warrior had developed a cautious respect for human endurance, but he still believed in keeping humans away from direct combat. The mission briefing made his position clear. "Humans will handle civilian evacuation," Vrax announced. "Extract colonists from the settlements and get them to the transport ships. Leave the Kreltok warriors to species built for hunting." Taesung said nothing. Beside him, Soo-bin cracked his knuckles quietly. The reconnaissance specialist was smaller than Taesung, lean and wiry, with eyes that never stopped moving. He'd joined the coalition military after spending 10 years as a search and rescue specialist in the Himalayan mountains back on Earth. The first engagement with the Kreltok went badly. Vrax's elite squad walked into an ambush in the toxic jungle outside Settlement 7. The Kreltok were masters of camouflage, blending perfectly with the purple and green vegetation of Kiris 4. They struck from above and below simultaneously. 3 coalition soldiers died in the first 30 seconds. The rest of Vrax's squad found themselves pinned down by energy weapons fire, unable to advance or retreat. The Kreltok had done this before. On other worlds. They knew how to trap conventional forces. "All units, this is Vrax," the commander's voice crackled over the comm, professional but strained. "We are pinned down. Heavy casualties. Request immediate support." General Krell, commanding from orbit, reviewed the tactical situation. "Negative, Commander." Krelltak have surrounded your position with minefields and overlapping fire zones. Sending reinforcements would result in more casualties. Understood, sir. A pause. Recommendations? Hold position. We're working on orbital bombardment solutions. That will take hours, General. I know. Taesung listened to this exchange while helping terrified colonists onto transport ships. Children cried. Adults scrambled aboard in panic. The evacuation was going smoothly, which meant the human soldiers were succeeding at their assigned task. But Taesung's mind was elsewhere. He found Major Yoon Da-eun, the human intelligence officer, studying a holographic map of the combat zone. Major, he said quietly. Permission to speak freely? Yoon looked up. She was older than Taesung by 15 years, with gray threading through her black hair. Granted. Corporal, Vrax's squad will be dead before orbital support arrives. The Krelltak will pick them off. They're designed for exactly this kind of siege. I'm aware, Yoon said. And, give me Subin and Ji-won, 3 of us. We can reach them. Yoon stared at him. Through a jungle full of Krelltak ambush specialists? Past minefields and kill zones? Corporal, that's suicide. With respect, Major, it's suicide for conventional forces. But we're not conventional forces. We're humans. Explain. Taesung pointed to the map. The Krelltak set up perfect ambush positions for heavy forces. Large squads, lots of equipment, predictable movement patterns. They're not expecting a 3-person team that can move light, adapt quickly, and doesn't need to stop. Yoon was quiet for a long moment. General Krell ordered humans to stay on evacuation duty. Yes, ma'am. If I authorize this and you fail, it's my career. Yes, ma'am. And if you succeed but I authorized you to disobey the general's orders? Still your career, ma'am. Taesung met her eyes. But Vrax's squad will be alive. Yoon looked at the map again. Then, at Taesung. Then, she sighed. I didn't hear this conversation, Corporal. I was in the bathroom. Terrible timing on my part. Taesung allowed himself a small smile. Understood, Major. 30 minutes later, 3 humans moved into the toxic jungle of Kiris 4. Taesung led, with Subin ranging ahead as scout, and Ji-won covering their rear. They carried minimal equipment, light weapons, water, medical supplies. Nothing heavy. The jungle was hostile. The air was thick with spores that would kill most species within hours. The humans wore simple respirators and ignored the burning in their lungs. The gravity was 15% higher than Earth standard. The humans adjusted their gait and kept moving. Subin found the first Krelltak mine within 100 meters. He marked it with a small piece of reflective tape and guided the team around it. Then another mine. And another. The Krelltak had seeded the approach routes heavily, assuming anyone coming to help Vrax would trigger them. But Subin had spent a decade finding lost climbers in terrain that wanted to kill him. He could read ground disturbance like a book. Every mine the Krelltak buried left traces. Subtle, nearly invisible. But there, hour 6. They'd covered 12 kilometers through the densest jungle on the planet. Subin stopped suddenly, hand raised. Taesung froze. Ji-won became absolutely still. A Krelltak patrol passed within 10 meters of their position. 8 warriors, each one a nightmare of natural weapons. Blade-like limbs, toxic spit, natural camouflage that made them almost invisible even when moving. The patrol never saw the 3 humans crouched in the undergrowth. Taesung had learned something during the war games. Most alien species relied on their superior senses and natural abilities. They didn't expect prey to simply be patient and quiet. Humans had spent millions of years being the weaker species, learning to hide from things that could kill them easily. Old skills, still useful. Hour 12. Taesung's team had circled halfway around the Krelltak siege position. They moved in silence, communicating with hand signals. The jungle tried to kill them constantly. Toxic plants, aggressive fauna, unstable ground. They adapted to everything, adjusted to everything, and never stopped moving. Hour 18. Subin led them to a ridge overlooking Vrax's pinned position. Through his scope, Taesung could see the Chitauri commander and what remained of his squad. They'd lost 5 soldiers now. The survivors were running low on ammunition and options. There, Subin whispered, pointing. Krell-Tak command post. 300 meters north. That's where they're coordinating the siege from. Taesung studied it. Heavily defended. 12 visible guards, probably more inside. We need intelligence on their full invasion plans. That's why they're here. Not just to kill one squad. The 5. So we take the command post? Ji-won asked. We take the command post, Taesung confirmed. They waited until nightfall. Kira's 4's night cycle was 30 hours long, and darkness was absolute under the jungle canopy. The Krell-Tak had excellent night vision. The humans used thermal imaging technology and moved like ghosts. Hour 24. They'd been in the jungle for a full day without rest. Subin was on point, when he suddenly dropped flat. Taesung and Ji-won followed instantly. Through the darkness, a Krell-Tak sentry passed by, close enough to touch. Subin waited until the sentry was 10 meters past, then moved forward again. They were inside the Krell-Tak perimeter now. One mistake would mean death. The command post was dug into the ground, camouflaged perfectly. Only the thermal signatures of the Krell-Tak inside gave it away. Taesung counted guards, estimated positions, calculated angles. Ji-won, you're our tech specialist. Can you access their systems? If we get inside, yes. But Corporal, look at those guards. Even with surprise, we're outnumbered 4-1. So we don't fight them directly, Taesung said. Then he looked at the jungle around them. We make them think they're under attack from a larger force. Create chaos. Use the environment. Subin grinned. Guerrilla tactics. We're good at those. The attack began at hour 28. Taesung threw the smoke grenade into the command post entrance. Immediately, shouts in the Krell-Tak language erupted. Guards rushed toward the smoke, weapons ready. Ji-won had rigged a series of the Krell-Tak's own mines to detonate on remote triggers. She activated 3 of them on the post's perimeter. The explosions made it sound like they were surrounded. Subin used the jungle. He'd found several species of plants that exploded when exposed to sudden temperature changes. He ignited them in sequence, creating a ring of fire and noise around the command post. The Krell-Tak guards thought they were under assault by a full platoon. They scattered, looking for targets, finding none. Confusion spread. Taesung led Ji-won into the command post during the chaos. 2 Krell-Tak warriors inside turned to face them. Taesung put 3 rounds into the first one before it could react. Ji-won took the second with a burst from her rifle. Work fast, Taesung ordered, covering the entrance. Ji-won's hands flew over the Krell-Tak computer systems. Alien interface, but she'd trained for this. Humans were good at figuring out tools that weren't designed for them. Adaptation was their specialty. Got it, she said after 90 seconds. Downloading their invasion plans, force disposition, target lists, everything. How long? 2 minutes. Outside, the Krell-Tak were regrouping. Subin was keeping them confused with hit-and-run attacks, appearing from one direction, then vanishing and attacking from another. One man making them think there were dozens. But the Krell-Tak commander, Warlord Grethix, was no fool. He started organizing his warriors systematically, searching the jungle grid by grid. They would find Subin, eventually. And then the humans. 30 seconds, Ji-won said. A Krell-Tak warrior appeared in the entrance. Taesung shot it. Another appeared. He shot that one too. Reloaded. 2 more came. He dropped one. The other got close, blade limb raised. Ji-won shot it from her position at the computer. Done. I've got the data. Move, Taesung ordered. They ran. Subin materialized from the jungle, falling in with them. Behind them, Warlord Grethix and 12 warriors gave chase. The Kreltak were fast in short bursts, but the humans had been moving for nearly 30 hours straight. They knew how to pace themselves. The chase became a hunt, but it was unclear who was hunting whom. Hour 30. The Kreltak were still pursuing, but they were breathing hard now, exhausted by the chase. The humans maintained their steady pace. Not sprinting, just moving. Always moving. Hour 36. Half the Kreltak warriors had dropped back, unable to maintain the pace. Grethix and 6 others continued, driven by fury and pride. Hour 42. Grethix finally cornered them in a small canyon. His warriors surrounded the 3 humans. The warlord approached, confident in his numerical advantage. The fight lasted 6 hours. Taesung, Subin, and G1 used everything. The terrain, their weapons, improvised tools. They fought in shifts, 1 resting while 2 engaged. The Kreltak, expecting a quick victory, found themselves in an endless battle of attrition against opponents who refused to quit. Hour 48. Grethix was wounded, bleeding from multiple gunshot wounds. 4 of his warriors were dead, the other 2 were injured, and the 3 humans were still fighting. For the first time in his military career, Warlord Grethix felt something new: fear. These weren't warriors in the traditional sense. They were something else. Something that didn't fight to win quickly, but simply fought until the enemy couldn't fight anymore. Grethix retreated, fled. His remaining warriors followed. Behind them, 3 humans watched them go. Taesung activated his comm. Major Yoon, this is Corporal Kim, extraction requested. We have the intelligence package. Confirmed, Corporal. Yoon's voice came back, relief obvious. And Vrax's squad? Taesung looked at his tablet. Using the Kreltak intelligence, he transmitted the enemy positions to Vrax. Commander Vrax, you now have full enemy disposition. Suggest you advance on bearing 270. Enemy defenses are compromised on that approach. Vrax's voice came through, filled with an emotion Taesung couldn't quite identify. Understood, Corporal. And thank you. When they returned to base 3 days later, having walked the entire way back through hostile territory, they found the entire coalition force waiting. General Krell stood at the front. Corporal Kim, he said formally, you disobeyed orders. Yes, sir. You took 2 soldiers into a combat zone you were specifically forbidden from entering. Yes, sir. You engaged enemy forces while outnumbered 4 to 1. Yes, sir. Krell was quiet for a moment. Then, you also saved Commander Vrax's squad, retrieved critical intelligence that saved this colony, and proved that human soldiers are not support personnel. He extended one of his 4 hands. Well done, Corporal. Taesung shook it. Nearby, Vrax approached. He looked at the 3 humans who'd spent 72 hours in hostile territory, who'd fought for 6 hours straight against superior forces, who'd simply refused to stop until the mission was complete. I was wrong about you, Vrax said. About all humans. Forgive me. Taesung nodded. Nothing to forgive, sir. You didn't know. Now you do. What are you? Vrax asked. What kind of species can do what you do? Taesung smiled tiredly. We're humans, sir. We're from Earth. And on Earth, you either learn to endure, or you die. We learned. The summons came 6 months after Kira's 4. Professor Choi Min-sok, a human xenobiologist, was requested to present findings to the Galactic Military Council. The topic was humanity itself. Taesung attended as a representative soldier. Commander Vrax was there as well, now serving as liaison between human and alien forces. The council chamber was enormous, filled with representatives from hundreds of species. At the center sat the most ancient beings in the coalition, including Ambassador Ixthar, whose species had been exploring the galaxy before humans learned to make fire. Professor Choi stood before them, a simple human in a room full of beings who could crush him without effort. He appeared calm as he activated his presentation. "Honored Council," he began. "You asked me to explain why human soldiers perform differently than expected. The answer requires understanding Earth itself." The display behind him showed a rotating image of Earth. Beautiful blue and green, swirled with white clouds. It looked peaceful. "This is a Class 12 death world," Choi continued. "The highest classification. Most of your species evolved on Class 4 to Class 6 worlds." He brought up comparison images. Lower gravity, stable climates, predictable seasons, few natural predators. An image of Earth's surface appeared. Massive storms, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, tsunamis. Earth tries to kill everything on it. Constantly. The weather can change from survivable to lethal in hours. The ground shakes and splits open. Mountains explode. The water rises and drowns entire coastlines. A representative from Prismara spoke up. "We know Earth is dangerous, but your species appears fragile. No natural armor. No weapons. How did you survive?" "By being something else," Choi replied. "Let me show you." The presentation shifted to human evolutionary history. Humans are persistence hunters. We evolved by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. An antelope can outrun a human easily, but it can't outlast one. Video footage played showing a human hunter in Earth's ancient past, following an animal's tracks. "We would chase prey for days, sometimes weeks. We didn't run fast. We just never stopped. The prey would run until its muscles broke down from exhaustion. Then we'd walk up and kill it with rocks." The council chamber was silent. "This is humanity's core adaptation," Choi explained. "Endurance. We can operate for days without sleep. We can function in extreme heat and extreme cold. We can survive on minimal food and water. We heal injuries and keep going. This isn't special training. This is basic human biology." Another image appeared, showing human temperature regulation. "Most of your species overheat quickly. You need rest to cool down. Humans sweat. We can cool ourselves while moving. This means we can maintain activity and heat that would kill most species." "And the cold?" someone asked. "We make fire. We create shelter. We adapt our behavior to the environment." Choi smiled slightly. "Humans are generalists. We have no specialized evolution for one environment. This means we can survive in almost any environment, given time to adapt." Ambassador Ixthar spoke for the first time, his ancient voice like wind through crystals. "You mentioned they hunt with rocks. Your weapons technology suggests otherwise." "Our weapons technology developed because we needed it," Choi responded. "Humans are individually weak. We have poor natural weapons, so we created better ones. Spears, bows, guns, ships. But the core behavior remains the same. We chase, we track, we never stop." The presentation shifted again. "Let me show you combat applications." Military footage played from the war games. Alien soldiers completing objectives quickly, then resting. Human soldiers completing objectives slowly, but never resting. The time-lapse showed the results clearly. "In short engagements, humans lose," Choi stated flatly. "Any species here can defeat a human in a sprint. In a quick fight. But warfare isn't usually quick. It's prolonged. It's exhausting. It requires sustained effort over time. And humans excel at this," Vrax said, speaking up. All eyes turned to the Chitauri commander. "I've fought alongside them now. I've watched them operate. They don't fight like we do. They fight like a tide. Constant. Inevitable. Never stopping." Choi nodded. "Exactly. The human approach to warfare is attritional by nature. We don't try to win quickly. We outlast the enemy, another council member spoke. But what about your psychological limitations? Surely the stress of continuous combat affects you? It does, Choi admitted. Humans suffer psychological trauma from combat. We develop dark humor to process horror. We adapt psychologically, just as we adapt physically. The presentation showed human soldiers in various environments: Arctic, desert, jungle, mountains, urban. Humans have lived in every environment on Earth, from ice sheets to rainforests, from mountains to swamps. We do this by learning, adapting, and persisting. There's something else, Choi continued. Human pack bonding extends beyond our species. We bond with our tools, our weapons, our vehicles. We name them. We care for them. He paused. And we bond with our squad mates, even if they're not human. Vrax made a clicking sound of agreement. True. The humans in my unit now, they would die for us. This makes humans psychologically suited for coalition work, Choi said. We're naturally inclined to form mixed groups and fight for them. It's part of our evolution. We survived as a species by working together against a world trying to kill us. Ambassador Ixthar leaned forward. Professor, you paint a picture of a remarkable species, but you haven't explained the most important thing. How did a species with no natural advantages become the apex predator of a Class 12 death world? Choi smiled. Because we're not the apex predator, Ambassador. That's the misunderstanding. On Earth, there are dozens of species that can kill a human easily. Bears, tigers, crocodiles, even some insects. Then how? We're not the strongest. We're not the fastest. We're not the most dangerous in any single category. Choi, let that hang for a moment. But we're the most persistent. We're the most adaptable. And we're the best at learning. He brought up another image. A human with a spear, hunting a mammoth. This animal was 3 times the size of a human. It had natural weapons, natural armor. It could kill a human with one strike, but humans hunted them to extinction. How? The question came from multiple council members. By learning its patterns, by adapting our tactics, by working together, by never giving up. Choi's voice grew stronger. Humans killed mammoths with wooden spears and patience. We learned where they went, when they were vulnerable, how to separate them from the herd. Then we walked up to something that could crush us, and we killed it anyway. The council chamber was completely silent now. Every species here evolved to fill a niche, Choi said. You became specialists. The best at one thing. Humans evolved to be generalists. We became good enough at everything. And that made us adaptable to anything. He brought up final slide. You asked why human soldiers perform differently. It's because we're built differently. Not physically. Evolutionarily. We evolved on a world that punished specialization and rewarded persistence. We evolved by outlasting everything that tried to kill us. So you're saying, a council member said slowly, that humans are dangerous because you refuse to quit? That's exactly what I'm saying. Ambassador Ixthar was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice carried weight. I have lived for 3,000 years. I have seen species rise and fall. Do you know what they all had in common? Exa, Choi waited. They became too specialized. Too perfect at one thing. When conditions changed, they couldn't adapt. They died. Ixthar's ancient eyes focused on Choi. Humans avoided this. You remained flexible. It makes you unique. It makes us survivors, Choi replied. There's a concern I must raise, another council member said. If humans are as persistent and adaptable as you claim, what prevents you from becoming a threat? You could use these abilities against the coalition. Tae-sung stood up. He hadn't planned to speak, but the question demanded an answer from a soldier, Not a scientist. May I address that, Professor? He asked. Choi nodded. Tae-sung faced the council. You're right to worry. Humans are dangerous. We evolved to be dangerous because everything else on our world was dangerous first. But there's something Professor Choi didn't mention. What's that, Corporal? Ambassador Ixthar asked. Humans don't just pack bond with our own species. We pack bond with anything that doesn't actively try to kill us. Sometimes even things that do. Tae-sung gestured to Vrax. Commander Vrax is my pack now. His soldiers are my pack. This coalition is my pack. And, the council member pressed. And humans defend their pack, Tae-sung said simply. We don't turn on pack. It's not in our nature. You accepted us into the coalition. That makes you pack. Which means, we'll fight for you, until we can't fight anymore. Vrax stood beside Tae-sung. I can confirm this. The humans in my unit would die to protect us. I've seen it. They're loyal beyond any species I've served with. This is the key, Choi added. Human persistence and adaptability make us formidable. But human pack bonding makes us loyal. You don't need to fear humanity turning against the coalition. You need to understand that once humans commit to something, they don't quit. Ambassador Ixthar stood. The ancient being's presence filled the room. I have reviewed the records. The war games. Kiras 4. Other incidents. I have also reviewed our own ancient archives, records from before most species here existed. He looked directly at Tae-sung. We have encountered your kind before. Not humans, specifically, but the type. Species that survive through persistence, rather than power. Species that adapt rather than dominate. Do you know what happened to them? No, Ambassador. They died out. Every one of them. Because persistence without direction leads to extinction. Adaptability without purpose leads to stagnation. Tae-sung felt cold. But, Ixthar continued, you have something they lacked. You have purpose. You have pack. You're not just surviving anymore. You're thriving. And that makes all the difference. The ancient being addressed the full council. I propose a new classification for humanity. Not support troops. Not standard infantry. Something new. What classification? General Krell asked. Apex class combatants, Ixthar declared. A classification for species that achieve superiority not through natural advantages, but through sheer refusal to be defeated. A classification for humanity. A classification for potentially. A classification for humanity. A classification for humanity. A classification for humanity. A classification for humanity. The council voted. The result was unanimous. As the meeting ended, Vrax approached Tae-sung. Apex class. The Chitauri warrior said. It suits you. It's just a classification, sir. No. Vrax replied. It's recognition of what you are. What you've always been. We just didn't see it before. Professor Choi joined them. Corporal Kim, do you understand what this means? That we'll be sent on harder missions? Tae-sung guessed. Choi laughed. Well, yes. But more than that. It means the galaxy understands now. You're not the strongest species. You're not the fastest, or the smartest, or the most powerful. But you might be the most dangerous. Because you simply don't stop. Tae-sung thought about Earth. About humanity's long climb from prey animals to spacefaring civilization. About every obstacle, overcome not through superiority, but through persistence. Professor, he said quietly, we're not trying to be dangerous. We're just trying to survive. I know, Corporal, Choi replied. That's what makes you dangerous. 6 months after receiving the Apex class designation, the galaxy learned what it truly meant. The collective mind arrived. It came from dark space between galaxies, a hive consciousness spread across billions of bodies. It had consumed 17 civilizations before reaching Coalition space. Each time, the pattern was the same. Overwhelming numbers, relentless assault, Victory through sheer mass. The collective didn't negotiate, didn't communicate. It simply consumed. The first week of the invasion cost the Galactic Defense Coalition 70% of its forces. Species that excelled at quick, decisive battles found themselves overwhelmed by an enemy that never stopped attacking, never retreated, never showed fatigue. General Krell stood in the command center of Terminus 7, watching tactical displays show sector after sector falling. Beside him, Admiral Seo Ji-hoon, recently promoted to command of human fleet operations, studied the same data with different eyes. "General," Seo said quietly, "request permission to implement Long War Protocol." Krell turned to the human admiral. "Explain." "The collective is using our tactics against us, sir. Overwhelming force, quick strikes. They're winning because we're fighting the way we always fight. Fast and hard." Seo gestured to the display. "But they have infinite reserves. We don't. We can't win a war of attrition using conventional doctrine." "What's Long War Protocol?" "Humanity's specialty, sir." Seo pulled up a document. "Sustained operations, continuous pressure, no grand battles, no decisive engagements, just constant, grinding warfare that never stops. That would exhaust our forces. It would exhaust most forces, sir." Seo met Krell's eyes. "But not human forces. This is what we're built for. Let us show you." Seo. 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 Krell looked at the tactical situation. They were losing. Traditional tactics weren't working. He made the decision. Approved. Humanity is now primary combat force. All other species will rotate to support roles. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The species once relegated to support would now carry the main burden of the war. Tae-sung, now promoted to lieutenant, received his briefing from Admiral Seo personally. "You understand what we're asking?" "Yes, sir," Tae-sung replied. He stood with the other human unit commanders. So was Han Subin, promoted to lieutenant for his reconnaissance work. Continuous combat operations. No rotation. No relief. We stay on the line until the war is won, or we're dead. "Correct." Seo's face was grave. "Other species will fight in shifts, weeks on, weeks off. But humans will maintain constant pressure. Can you do this?" Tae-sung thought about Earth, about ancestors who hunted mammoths with wooden spears, about humans who crossed continents on foot, about the species that survived everything a Class 12 death world could throw at them. "Yes, sir, we can do this." The campaign began. Human forces deployed across 12 sectors, facing collective forces that outnumbered them 10 to 1. The strategy was simple. Never stop, never rest, never give the enemy time to consolidate. Month 1. Human soldiers fought battles that lasted days at a time. When alien coalition forces would have withdrawn to regroup, humans simply kept fighting. The collective, used to enemies that broke under sustained assault, found opponents that refused to break. Commander Vrax, now serving as liaison to human forces, watched in amazement. "How long have they been fighting?" 72 hours continuous, an aide reported. "Lieutenant Kim's unit hasn't stopped since insertion. Casualties, 15%. But they're still operational." Vrax pulled up the video feed. Human soldiers moved through the battlefield like machines. Tired, wounded, but unstoppable. They adapted to every collective tactic within hours. When the hive tried to overwhelm with numbers, humans created kill zones and held them for days. When the collective tried to ambush, humans countered by never following predictable patterns. Month 3. The collective began showing something new in its responses. Confusion. The hive mind was optimized for consuming civilizations that fought conventionally. Quick battles. Decisive engagements. Victory or retreat. But humans didn't retreat. They didn't engage in decisive battles. They just ground forward. Day after day. Week after week. Month after month. Private Kang Yuna, 20 years old and fresh from Earth, found herself fighting beside veterans who'd been on the line since the war started. She'd been in combat for 6 weeks straight, without rotation. "How do you do it?" she asked Sergeant G1 during a brief resupply. "Do what?" G1 replied, checking her weapon with hands that trembled from exhaustion. "Keep going. I'm so tired I can barely stand. But you've been fighting for 3 months." G1 smiled. It was a tired smile, but genuine. "You just keep taking the next step, Private. Don't think about tomorrow. Don't think about next week. Just the next step. That's it? That's it. Humans are good at just one thing, Yuna. We're good at taking the next step. Year 1. The collective's advance had stopped. For the first time in its existence, it had encountered prey that didn't break, didn't run, didn't collapse from exhaustion. Coalition Command watched human forces maintain operations that would have destroyed any other species. 96-hour battles became routine. Human soldiers developed dark humor about it, joking while treating wounds, laughing while planning next operations. "They're insane," a Gorlax officer said, watching humans celebrate holding a position for 8 days straight against constant assault. "No," Vrax corrected. Lieutenant Subin led special operations deep into collective-held territory. His team tracked collective nodes for months at a time, living behind enemy lines, never stopping, never resting long. They provided intelligence that allowed human forces to strike precisely where the hive was weakest. After 8 months of continuous operation, Subin's team finally rotated out. Medical examination showed he'd lost 15 kilograms. His body was running on reserves and willpower. "Lieutenant," the doctor said, "you need rest. Real rest. Weeks of it." "How long can you give me?" Subin asked. "I'm recommending 30 days minimum. Give me 3. I need to get back out there." "That's not enough." Subin fixed the doctor with eyes that had seen 8 months of continuous combat. "It's enough. Humans don't need to fully recover. We just need enough to keep going." Year 2. The collective made its critical mistake. It tried to outlast the humans. The hive consciousness, unable to break human forces through direct assault, attempted to simply maintain pressure until the humans exhausted themselves. It had infinite reserves. Surely the humans would break eventually, but they didn't. Taesung, now a captain, commanded a battalion that had been fighting for 18 months. His soldiers were ghosts. Thin, scarred, exhausted beyond any measure other species would consider survivable, but they were still fighting. "Captain," his executive officer reported, "collective forces are pulling back from Sector 7. Taesung studied the tactical display. "Why?" "Unknown, sir." They've never retreated before. But Taesung understood. The collective was confused. It had tried everything. Overwhelming numbers, constant assault, siege tactics. Nothing worked. The humans just kept coming, kept fighting, kept refusing to die. For a hive mind built on consuming prey, encountering predators that couldn't be exhausted was breaking its fundamental programming. Year 3. The endless march began. Admiral Seo proposed the final operation. "We push. Everywhere. Simultaneously. We don't stop until we've cleared every collective presence from coalition space." "That's impossible," General Krell said. "The logistics alone are being handled by non-human coalition forces," Seo interrupted. "Support, resupply, medical. They do what they're good at, and humans do what we're good at. We march." The operation began. Human forces advanced across every front simultaneously. Not quickly, not with overwhelming force. Just steadily, constantly, inevitably. 40 days. The advance lasted 40 days without pause. Human soldiers fought through exhaustion that would kill most species. They adapted to every collective counter-tactic within hours. When the hive tried to create kill zones, humans went around them. When the collective massed forces to overwhelm, humans dispersed and attacked elsewhere. Taesung's battalion was at the spearhead. They'd been fighting for over 2 years now. The soldiers barely resembled the humans who'd started the war. They moved with mechanical efficiency, every action optimized by months of continuous combat. On day 38, the collective broke. The hive mind, evolved to consume civilizations through overwhelming pressure, fractured when subjected to greater pressure than it could endure. The unity that made it strong became its weakness. When it broke, it shattered completely. Day 40. Silence fell across the battlefields. The collective was gone. Scattered. Destroyed not by superior firepower or advanced technology, but by an enemy that simply refused to stop. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from every species gathered to understand what had happened. Ambassador Ixthar spoke first. Humanity won this war. Not the coalition. Humanity. While we provided support, it was human soldiers who stood on the line for 3 years without relief. Who fought when any other species would have broken? Who defeated an enemy that had consumed 17 civilizations? Silence filled the chamber. I ask now, Ixthar continued, that we formally recognize what we all know. Humanity is not simply another member species. They are the apex defense force. When the galaxy faces an enemy that cannot be defeated through conventional means, we call on humanity. Because they do what no one else can. They endure. The vote was unanimous. When Tae-sung received the news, he was in a medical facility. His body was finally being allowed to rest after 3 years of continuous operation. Ji-won was in the bed next to him. Subin was 2 beds down. All across the facility, human soldiers were sleeping the sleep of the utterly exhausted. Vrax came to visit. The Chitauri commander looked at the rows of sleeping humans with something like awe. You did it, he said when Tae-sung woke. You actually did it. 3 years. 3 years of continuous combat. No species should be able to do that. You Tae-sung, Arwadam-sung. You Tae-sung, we're not built like other species. Tae-sung replied. His voice was hoarse from disuse. No, you're not. Vrax sat down. When you first arrived at Terminus 7, I thought you were weak, soft, unfit for combat. I was wrong about everything. You didn't know. I should have. The signs were there. You come from a death world. You evolved by persistence hunting. All the data said you were built for exactly this kind of war. But I didn't believe it. None of us did. And now? Now? Vrax laughed. Now, when the galaxy has nightmares, they're about humans. The species that never stops. That never quits. That just keeps coming no matter what. Tae-sung thought about that. We're not trying to be scary. We're just doing what humans do. We survive. We survive. I know. That's what makes it terrifying. Vrax stood. The council wants you to address them. When you're recovered, they want to understand. Understand what? What you are. What humanity is. 2 weeks later, Tae-sung stood before the Galactic Council. He wasn't a scientist like Professor Choi. Wasn't a politician. Just a soldier who'd spent 3 years fighting. You want to know what we are? He began. I'll tell you. We're from Earth, a world that tried to kill us every single day. We didn't evolve to be the strongest. We didn't evolve to be the fastest. We didn't evolve to be the smartest. He paused, looking at the assembled representatives of hundreds of species. We evolved to never, ever stop. On Earth, we have a saying. It's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog. You're all bigger than us, stronger, faster, better in almost every way. But we have something you don't. We have the absolute refusal to quit. To give up. To stop fighting. You called us weak when we arrived. You mocked our lack of natural weapons. Our soft skin. Our ordinary abilities. You were right to doubt us. By any conventional measure, humans shouldn't be warriors. But we're not conventional. We're humanity. We're the species that hunted mammoths with wooden spears, that crossed continents on foot, that survived everything a Class 12 death world could throw at us. Not by being strong, but by being persistent. We are adaptation. When you change the battlefield, we adapt. When you change the tactics, we adapt. When you change the enemy, we adapt. Because we come from a world that changed constantly and punished anything that couldn't change with it. We are endurance. When you tire, we continue. When you need rest, we keep moving. When you collapse from exhaustion, we take the next step. Because we evolved doing exactly that. We are pack. When you fight for duty, for orders, for your species. When we fight for each other, for our brothers and sisters, for our pack, and humans will die for their pack. Tae-sung's voice grew stronger, filling the chamber. You asked us to prove ourselves. We did. You asked us to support your forces. We did. You asked us to fight your wars. We did. For 3 years, we fought without rest, without rotation, without relief. We fought when you said it was impossible. We won when you said it couldn't be done. We are humanity. We are persistence. We are adaptation. We are endurance. He looked directly at Ambassador Ixthar. The ancient being met his gaze without flinching. We are apex. The chamber erupted in response. Some species cheered. Others sat in stunned silence. All of them understood. Finally, what humanity truly was. Vrax approached afterward. The Chitauri warrior, who'd once mocked humans as weak prey animals, extended his claw in the gesture of deepest respect. Forgive my blindness, brother, he said formally. I see clearly now. Tae-sung clasped the claw. There's nothing to forgive. You learned. That's all that matters. I learned that the most dangerous predator isn't the one that kills quickest, Vrax replied. It's the one that never stops hunting. Young Private Kang Yuna, watching from the viewing gallery, turned to Sergeant Ji-won. Sergeant, do you think they finally understand us? Ji-won smiled. They understand what we can do. Understanding what we are? That might take longer. What's the difference? We can do impossible things. We can fight for years. We can endure anything. We can adapt to everything. Ji-won's smile widened. But what we are is simpler. We're humans, from Earth, and we just don't quit. Ever. Ever. In the years that followed, when the galaxy faced threats that seemed insurmountable, the call always went out. When enemies appeared that couldn't be defeated through conventional warfare, when situations demanded endurance beyond any species' capability, they called humanity, and humanity answered. Not because they were the strongest, not because they were the fastest, not because they were the most advanced, because they were apex, because they were built to endure, because they were human, and humans never, ever stop.